when I'm get to the bag, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy, ayy. Let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
Hey guys, before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know it is brought to you by Revenova, the official TMS provider for the Freight Coach. You guys, I've been a broker for a long time, and the tools that are at your disposal with Revenova help you eliminate bouncing between systems, which improves your accuracy when you are managing multiple tasks throughout your workday. Plus, it's built into the Salesforce cloud, so your CRM is fully integrated with your TMS, eliminating yet another silo. In today's day and age, you are definitely concerned about the safety of your data. With Revenova, it's fully protected. They have cutting-edge security that keeps your information safe so you can focus on what matters most, and that's growing your business. Speaking of growing your business, with Rate and Lane IQ, you get real-time pricing and route recommendations, helping you optimize costs and improve operational efficiencies, which ultimately helps you make smarter decisions. If you are like me and have recurring shipments from non-EDI customers, they have intuitive cloning features that let you easily replicate previous shipments, saving both shipper and carrier rates with just a few taps. If you are ready to learn more, visit www.revenova.com to request a demo. Just do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach podcast. My name is Chris Jolly, and I am your host. And you guys, we're just going to really jump right in. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. It's not very often that you get to sit down with a multi-time founder and then somebody who's been in the industry almost as long as I've been alive, not trying to date him, but he's been in the industry for over 30 years. I'm pushing 40 though, so I guess I can have a little bit of credibility at that point. But, you know, there's a lot of practices out there that are changing in the industry. And then there's some that are never going to change, right? And those fundamentals and, you know, and then also the grit, the determination, and the long-term thinking that you need to bring to the table out there. So I have the founder of Sage Freight, Mr. Bob King, on the show this morning. Bob, thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
Thanks for having me here.
You know, and like we were talking last week, I was like, I don't even know where to start. There's so many things I want to ask when it comes down to it. But, you know, I guess the first thing is, you know, what made you want to become an entrepreneur, Bob? Like, what was that thing? Was there a moment, or was it kind of a catalyst of a bunch of things where you're like, I got to go out and do this on my own because I think I can do it better?
Well, I think it was my start at C.H. Robinson. And back in the day before they went public, it was just such an amazing organization. And each different branch was its own business, basically. And you were out there fighting for freight, but fighting against each other. And, you know, I don't think that Robinson gets the kudos that it should from when you look at from 2005, basically, and below that. Their stock was traded at incredible levels. The people who were running that organization, Greg Govan, Sid Verdorn, Barry Butso, you know, Mark Walker, Jim Best. I have some really amazing people on my board that were for Robinson. It was a different culture.
What do you think that there's, you know, speaking of big business and, you know, when you're out there trying to build a big, is there a point where it gets too big, where you feel like those tangible things that kind of got you up and running, you know, building up those customer loyalty, the employee loyalty? Do you think that there's companies that it reaches a point where it loses that?
Yeah, I think, you know, we're all building a business to try to get away from a bureaucracy only to become a bureaucracy. And that's really what the fight is, and how your leadership team is, and how you communicate, and the way that you value people or not. And I think that that's the challenge. The footer or the foundation of Robinson is probably not there anymore with all the different changes in leadership. But I fight every day. My job is to make sure that my culture is maintained, and that's the number one thing. Our team members are the number one thing.
How have you really had that be your focal point when you went out there and you started Sage Freight? You know, like I want to go back to the early days there of, you know, back when you guys decided to go out and go on this venture. What was some of those early challenges that, you know, you faced right away where it kind of shaped how you were going to establish your culture today?
Well, I think it comes from when I started Cavalry Logistics in 2005, and I got to, I sold it in 10 and got to see how corporate America can change an organization. And when we started Sage in 2021 of October, we had over 30 people come from Cavalry. And so that footing, that yeast that was there, that incubator, I mean, they knew how we operated. A lot of those people were driving the culture there, and that entrepreneurial spirit, but also, grinding and knowing that this business is really, really tough in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Talking about the beginning there, what were some of those early challenges? Because, I see a lot of this stuff, Bob, on social media where it's just so easy, right? Like you and I were kind of talking about this when we had, originally chatted. Like as somebody who, I've only been self-employed for 5 years now, right? Like the only thing I'm very, very confident in is how little I know at this point when it comes to like building a business long-term and really what to expect out there. But you scroll on social media for 5 seconds and you instantly feel behind because clearly everybody's got it figured out. Everybody's making $1 million+ a year. They all have yachts and everything else out there. But, when we had originally chatted, you were talking about like your sole focus when you went out and started Sage. So like what was that when you're going out there and really trying to get your business off the ground? What were some of those early hurdles?
The biggest thing was trust. And we had to have the carrier community trust us. We had to have the banking community trust us. And then also customers. I mean, my first 6 months, I was calling different funding organizations, trying to make sure that they understood who we were and that our team came from Cavalry and all the success we had there, and sending them my business plans. I mean, RTS and giants like that, you need to have on your side in order to move the business forward. And, capital constraints are always difficult in a bureaucratic society or world. And when we operate and I'm using somebody else's money, I've got to deal with the politics. If I'm starting my own business, I got to deal with the fact that I'm on the line for $20 million personal guarantees. Those things are scary, and they change the way that you approach business. And, I can tell you, this is only my second podcast or interview. And so I do a terrible job of communicating what Sage is about and how our company is founded. And that sometimes can be a detriment, but also, there's so many conferences in these days, that so many distractions, and, there are some CEOs who live at conferences and their businesses suffer because of it. And I don't go to a lot of conferences. I don't do a lot of this. It hurts when I'm in the banking community, but it sets the foundation that I'm the hardest working type of individual in our company. And I do all I can to make sure that I'm driving value every day.
Bob, that was one of the things that stuck out to me the most when we had chatted, right, was your dedication to your business. And that's one thing that I'm really, really realizing as my brokerage grows and, the media company that I have grows is I have to be so mindful of my time. Like my time is everything, and it has to be 90% of my time has to be on revenue producing activities at this stage inside of my business, right? Because like I had no customers in either of my companies that I've started, right? I had zero revenue guarantee. I had zero anything. I've had to literally build everything up day one, dollar one. And I see that out there where it's like, I can't go to all of these shows. I can't do a bunch of these things because like I have to be there when that opportunity falls into my lap. As you know, when you start your business and your brokerage, like getting those customers and that, getting them as one thing, but then growing with them as an entire different ball game. And you have to be present in that. And I think, like you said, have $20 million of personal guarantees. I don't think people actually understand what a personal guarantee is on a loan, right? That means Bob King is liable to pay back $20 million himself, not the business. And this is if anything goes wrong, which we're not advocating for, but that's a personal guarantee. And that's a different level of stress and focus that most people never, ever, ever will understand. So like when I hear you say, like, you don't join podcasts, you don't go to these conferences because you have to be where your investment is. And when you are the leader of that organization, that makes complete and perfect sense.
Yeah. And it's not just my money. I mean, we started Sage and made money in 10 weeks. And so we were very blessed with the team members that we have, but then we also had some great investors early on, Jim Best and Mark Walker. And then there's another company, Jordan Partners, that have invested in us. And we would have made the top 100 brokerages in our first 3 years of business. We'll do probably 175 million. And so we're focused on the right things, but the biggest thing that I always have to focus on is no. And I think that, owning your own business or being part owner in a business, it sounds sexy until you're grinding 80 hours a week. And that's what this has been. I mean, I started this a year before we actually opened up, getting all my legal documents and logos, branding, all of that stuff. I also spent a lot of time calling banks that I wanted to deal with. Like, we use Wintrust. They're an incredible partner. I called them before I was able to be on their line, telling them that I was coming. I pointed to the fences. Same thing with TriumphPay. I did the same thing. I told them, I was like, you're going to want our business. You're going to want our business. And they're all like, we'll see. And that same thing happens with private equity companies or family offices or, VCs. I mean, it is a grind, man.
How important is it in those moments where, I know my answer to this one, but I'd love to hear your response on the importance of being your own personal cheerleader, because there's those moments where you don't know, man. You don't know if it's all going to work out. You can sit here and boast and say, oh, everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be fine. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But inevitably those moments of doubt start to creep in. Like, wait, are we going to be okay? Like, am I going to have a house? Like, at least I've been faced with that and I'm open about that. So how do you really attack those moments?
I just work harder, and that is real. And every day when I'm doing my job, am I a phony or not? Am I really who I say I am? But the key is that I can't ever let my team see me in a time that I'm concerned like that. I mean, I have to be the biggest cheerleader. And, I only own 24% of Sage. Mm-hmm. And so I own a lot less. I carry a huge risk, but we pushed as much of the stock out to our partners and the people. And I say partners, it means the people who are working at Sage with me, that, when Robinson went public, 100 people became millionaires overnight. And that was the most powerful thing that made me want to be an entrepreneur even more. And how they reacted and the ownership that they had. And I'm trying to do the same thing here in just a different manner and a different time. But yeah, it is running. Look at how many brokerages have gone out of business in the last year and a half and how difficult this environment has been. And we're not just a brokerage. We also own a trucking company and in Chicago, and we've got about 55 trucks and 120 trailers. And I thought I knew transportation until I bought a trucking company. So holy baptism by fire for sure. And so when I'm listening to this triangle of who's responsible for the market conditions the way that it is, whether it's the customer, the carrier, or the broker, all of us have our own piece in that and understanding, what it is. And I think that there's a lot of companies long term that try to make the most out of every dollar. And I just try to hit singles. I want to have customers that do business with us for a long time. I want to have very strong carrier relationships. I want my team members to act with integrity at all times and not bump trucks and do the things that a lot of brokerages should do. And there's no shortcut. This whole fake it till you make it society and, the LinkedIn and all that stuff, who are those people? Who's the person who, I had this guy, we have a company in Pakistan, also an offshore company, and they called him Pakistani Bob. And so he was running around telling everybody that he was going to be the next leader of Sage, and he was sitting on a private plane with a gold watch. And I was like, dude, you don't know me. I don't have a gold watch, and would never be in a private plane. That is not who a good CEO is.
That, man, I'm right there with you. I love what you said about the singles, right? Because I look at my business and my journey, like this is truly a marathon, right? Like you say whatever you want, like burn the boats or whatever. Like I am unemployable by anybody else at this point because I figured out a love and a passion for building something for myself. And I'm in love with the process, right? Like I love seeing that slow and steady growth year over year over year inside of my companies and stuff. And I also love hearing the feedback from our customers, right? Like, hey, you guys do something that we've never experienced before. And you know what? It hasn't happened at scale yet, at the levels that I had originally anticipated at that moment, but my numbers are growing year over year. And if I'm looking at what the next 40 years of my life is, because I'm going to be 40 here, is I'm like, man, I don't have an exit strategy, right? Like retiring to me or doing anything other than what I'm doing right now is just unfathomable, besides going and building my happiness and my dream in the future that hopefully my kids and grandkids can come and work in, and then all of that stuff, right? Because it's like, I've just accepted that this is who it's going to be, and I will just do whatever it takes. And I'm not that fake it till you make it. I would rather tell people the honest truth about how, like the hurdles that I've had to overcome inside of my business and on my journey, and have a track record of that, as opposed to putting some false narrative out there, because then all of a sudden you're telling lies about your lies and you don't even know when you're telling the truth. That's just no way to live a life, I don't think, anymore.
Yeah. And I believe that if you think about your exit, you're going to run a bunk business. And, for me, I have a blessing and a curse that after I started Calvary and sold it and then ran it until 2019, and I transitioned as they were rebranding it. But I got to see how corporate culture can, muffle a thriving brokerage, and that brokerage doesn't exist anymore. And that was like a piece of my side came out of me when that happened, because I was cheering for all those people. And, when I left, I felt like a big fat hypocrite because of the way that I focused culture. But I got to the point that I could not impact change to the manner that I wanted to. And so when you get at the later stages of your career, it's not about, so many times we've seen these big brokerages, they sell, and the same thing happens over and over and over again. A few pieces of people make a whole bunch of business. They sell it to a strategic. The strategic comes in, puts their systems, changes everything about the company, really compensation models. They try to ratchet it down in order to make the numbers that they said that they were going to make when they bought the company. And then all the goodwill, the people, they go outside. And so for me, I'm not building a company for myself. I'm building a company long-term with my teammates who are phenomenal, so that there's something left of me after I'm done. So, I'm facing retirement, and it's sure, I got probably 5 years left. It will be 37 years in this, tragic, difficult business, but it's got to be something left over. It can't just be money in someone's pocket. And, when you talk to private equity guys about that, they think that I'm a banana head. They think that I'm a banana head, that I carry all the risk of the company, but I gave out as much of the company as that we could. But that's what great leaders do. And I'm aspiring to be a great leader, but I care more about my team than I do anything else.
I love that. And, when you're talking about the money piece there, I just look at it like this now, man. Like I am not financially free or anything like that. Like I still got a lot on the line. Like my 401k, is this business working? You know what I mean? But like, at the end of the day, I just look at it, man, it's just money. Like I have a work ethic, right? Like I will make more money at the end of the day. If whatever comes my way, I'm more chasing that impact that you're talking about right there. And, like we were talking about all the books you got behind you. And when you're like, I want to talk a little bit more about that culture, right? That you're describing in there and your team, because you invest in them outside of, here's your training, go figure it out, right? Like you're actively engaged in their long-term success, whether it's with you guys or they can take a piece of what they learn with you and go out and go after something else.
Yeah. And most people who graduate college have never finished a book. And so when you look at how the industry's changed, and you look at Convoy and Next Trucking and some of these organizations that take hundreds of millions of dollars in order to build this big thing, what they've forgotten is the importance of leadership. And that, in most senses and most companies, it's dead. And most of us who are running organizations or departments, we tend to spend a lot more of our time on people who aren't hitting their KPIs. And that's the exact wrong thing. I want to spend my time identifying who are the Pareto people, who are the top 20% of the company. And I need to invest and pour into them as long as I can, until the minute that they get to the point that they're not investing in themselves. And we can see it when you operate a company that's based on culture. And I mean, it was very, very difficult to build a culture in Pakistan. I've been there 6 times. Not many people would make that trip, but I go 2 to 3 times a year, and changing the social norms there, and how leadership changes from a hierarchical style, which there's a person on the top who's yelling, to a network style where there's a whole bunch of people involved. I didn't do it alone. I had all these other people that came with me who have read the books. I mean, I would hope that people who worked at Cavalry or work at Sage stand out. I would hope that my legacy is showing in the people that are in the market and think like me, because sooner or later, the market's going to twist back to where transparency and vulnerability and people who are, sacrificing for their team, that is what we're going to need as the market changes back. Because robocalling, robotexting, you're not going to build relationships like that. It's about how you build people. And so we're hiring folks who come out of college, who have never been yelled at, really, who deal with most of their, breaking up and things that are going on in their personal life based on fake it till you make it and social media and all those kind of things. And then we're putting them in a seat and saying, hey, on your first day, I want you to pick up a phone, which a lot of them don't use that norm anymore, and negotiate with a carrier. And they're like, what are you talking about? In Pakistan, they negotiate everything. It was a lot easier to teach that culture there than it was in the US. And so our purpose, and the reason that I have people read books, is there's 4 questions that they have to answer. And, my favorite book in the world that's on the list is The Alchemist. And I'm trying to see the way that they see the world, because I'm looking for leaders who are willing to be transparent and vulnerable and communicate to people and understand the value that they had. And, all of us go through really bad times. And it's when we go through those bad times, you will see somebody's KPIs crash. And in most businesses, what they do is they meet with that individual and they say, hey, you got to get your numbers up, and otherwise you're out. They're missing the chance to build long-term security and loyalty for that person by saying, hey, what's up? The most important question that I tell my team they can ask every day is, how are you, to the people around them? And this industry, man, it is rough. It's a grind. And so back in the day when we were all working the desk, and for me, that was early 93, it was a different world, but it's right back to there. And yes, you're booking on apps and online and chats and all these other things, but it's going to swing back. It is going to be an environment where we have to pick up the phone and talk to people again. And our team members are not ready. So, you look back 4 years, 2021, most of the people who are on the brokerage desk right now have never operated in a difficult environment. Mm-hmm. So turnover is 30 to 34%. And then the average timeline in transportation is 5 to 7 years. Mm-hmm. So when you're thinking about that, people who are really good at their job normally get promoted. And so companies tend to promote the wrong people. They promote the wrong ideas. And as people are filling out book reports for me, I have a timestamp of who they are trying to be. And I can tell whether they're, ChatGPT and that, and didn't put any value or volume in it. And I compare their book reports versus another candidate, and we make a selection in who they are and how they've grown through this process. And that's why we grow.
No, I love that investment, because, you're right. Most people after college, heck, I forget the stat off the top of my head, but it's like at least after high school, have never read a book. They've never looked at what other, because like, again, we're a 30-second society at this point, right? Because that's what most reels on social media are. They're 30 seconds, or we're a headline only society. And then you add in ChatGPT and other forms of AI, and you don't actually research anything anymore, right? Like, you don't actually read books that are out there. I mean, some of the most profound books that I've read just this year are from Jeb Blount, right? It's Fanatical Prospecting and Objections. And it's given me a whole different mindset on how I approach my prospects and my customers, how I work through that process. And it actually separated an objection and a rejection from me for the first time in my career. I started looking at that's actually two separate outcomes from a call, right? And that's helped us change trajectory inside of our business. And it's like, if you're going to navigate through the ups and downs of a lot of this is there's so many great resources by people who have already built and done phenomenal things. And you can just take a little piece inside of that and then apply it into your business. Cause you're right. Like most people don't even, and like as a father, I'm just going to bring this up. I that's one of my concerns for my son is he's growing up in a digital world. Now I'm going to make him go get a job, probably slinging burgers or something like that. He's going to get that human to human interaction. He's going to do that. But there's not a lot of people out there that are taking that approach, Bob, and investing in their staffs. At least to the best of my knowledge and the people that I know, I don't know of anybody else inside of the transportation industry that is taking the approach that you guys are at Sage in investing in their people at that level.
Yeah, I don't either. And I did it at Calvary, and we had people, over 8,000 book reports were submitted. And, you know, I'm here and I don't have these books behind me because I want people to think that I'm intelligent or any. I did the work. I read those darn books. And yeah. I've had meetings where I brought in several hundred books and put them on the table to try to get people to understand the point that, you know, I have to work at my craft. And by reading every single day, it causes me to remember who I am wanting to be. And every time you read a book, there's something, even if it's a bad book, there's a spark that says, hey, maybe I need to think about it this way. And I'm reading this book. We're getting ready to have a group of people who are growing to be VPs. And there's this book called Mind of the Leader. And the whole book is about personhood, which you wouldn't think that you would have to teach people about personhood anymore, but that's where the money lies. And, you know, long term, the people who make the most money in the world are going to be phenomenal leaders.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. And, you know, you'd mentioned that you have a global footprint inside of your business. So I'm assuming technology, it has to play a role inside of that. So how do you keep everybody on the same page, right? You got your trucking company, you have your brokerage, you have your team in Pakistan. How do you keep everybody aligned like that? And how has technology played a role inside of that?
Well, being an early stage company and operating on your own cash flow and only ever taking, you know, $5 million to build a $160 million company, technology is really, really difficult. And so I run a company that I am reinvesting all of the money back into the organization. I'm spending about $2.5 million every year on tech. So when I sit down with people, if they're talking to me about wanting to invest or a private equity company or anything like that, you know, you go to the EBITDA line, and the EBITDA lies in goodwill. It's in my people. It's in IP. And so tech is huge. And we've had to go backwards in technology, change platforms, because we're developing all the things that help my teammates be better, faster, stronger. So technology, in my view, it's a robo-suit. It makes people more effective. It does not remove the person. And I think that companies who have tried to do that have missed out. And, you know, when Convoy came out and said, we're going to revolutionize the industry, I don't think that they knew that there was pioneers from Robinson and backhaulers and all these different companies who did a lot of the simple stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it's hard, you know, in our trucking company, we've tried to make sure that it's sitting on the outside because we want it to have its own culture and individuality. We're very tight with Sage PK. We got 130 people there. And so how you group those folks and how you create a culture that people can communicate readily. And in Pakistan, there's different challenges than there are in the US, but at the end of the day, we're all people. And the people in Pakistan have the same gear. They have the same KPIs. There's no offset. We don't care where you work. We just care that you're a part of our team long-term and that you're doing the things that we expect.
How do you choose what technology to invest in at this stage in your business? So like, what are some of those things? Because there's a lot of stuff out there at any given moment just coming at. I can only imagine what you see or your company sees on a day-to-day from from a tech standpoint and opportunities, what are some of those intangibles that you think that are like, yeah, this is going to be here, this is where you should invest in?
Well, as soon as we started the company, I spent, like $500,000 on a TMS aggregator. So it was money that was really difficult. Anything around rating and proprietary information, new brokerages just need to thrive on that. So yes, there's a lot of systems that are coming out, and everyone thinks that an API connection is technology. That's not it, because you have to figure out what your processes are and then how you develop that role. So we operate differently than other companies, and we operate in module-based technology growth. So I look at a new platform and I say that platform needs to do 5 things. It doesn't need to do 500 things. That's where people get off. Just do 5 things. What does an account executive need? What does a carrier sales rep need? What does a salesperson need? And when you identify that, then you thrive. And we're also in an environment where customers are a lot smarter, carriers are a lot smarter. We're all smarter and have, a lot of it is a week prior of information and rating. And so those who can dial in on rates and how the market fluctuates day to day, those are the people that are going to win. It's not just girth and getting a whole bunch of calls out there and trying to whittle it down. It's with customers and carriers. And I think that's where we are. None of us are doing anything that's crazy. It's just, how are we building our mousetraps that's different? And there's so many good people in transportation. There's so many strong young people like yourself who are growing, who are giving it a good word. And we just need to be nice to each other.
Now, I appreciate that. And I agree at the end of the day, man. There's nothing I'm doing is proprietary, and I try my best to put as many best practices out there as possible for people to follow and what I've learned out there in my career. But that will be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show. And if you're feeling really ambitious after this one, which you should be, rank the show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you saw value, chances are your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Hey, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the back. Hey, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast.